In Australia, we have some of the world's most visionary architects who are not afraid to push the boundaries. We are exploring their work to single out some of the best architecture in the country. Welcome to Australia by Design Architecture. We've gathered a diverse group of design industry leaders by Zoom to judge which architectural projects will go through to the final and ultimately which project will be the series winner.
Everybody involved, all the judges and the presenters, we're basically here, we're authentic, we're practicing, we're giving our take on the projects that we're seeing.
I think they are eminently qualified to judge these projects today.
In this episode, it's school, but not as you know it, in Adelaide. Building for bushfires in the Blue Mountains and concrete integration in Sydney. But first...
Howard Smith Wharves in Brisbane, under the Story Bridge. Here we've created a precinct which is not only for hotels, but it's for entertaining, there's restaurant dining. You could see people, really embracing this space.
It does a great job of balancing the tourism and the economic revitalisation, but also creates a space that people will feel welcome and enjoy without having to spend a dollar.
I'm at the Howard Smith Wharves on the Brisbane River, where a creative architect, a visionary client and a master planner have joined forces to turn a once grimy dockland into a 21st century thriving precinct, but without losing its historic soul. And like every story involving a wharf, this one starts in the bar with the young CEO of Howard Smith Wharves. Luke, it's only early.
It is, but it's never too early for a beer, right, Peter?
Up here in Queensland.
No, absolutely.
Well, cheers. Tell us paint us a black and white picture of what this was once like.
Well, if you roll back to the late 1800s, you'd see lots of ships coming and going, and really Howard Smith Wharves has contributed quite significantly to the growth of Brisbane.
What was the brief to try and explore here?
Yeah, what we know is we have an enviable lifestyle here in Brisbane. We love the outdoors, and that outdoor experience is something we really wanted to shine through very strongly here. We have the iconic Story Bridge in front of us, the beautiful cliffs behind us. We've rediscovered the magic of our Brisbane River, and we're so fortunate we're perched right here on it.
Well, I could be perched right here all day, but I've got to meet the architect and the planner, mate. I might see you later. Thanks,
fantastic.
Mate. The next character in this wonderful wharf transformation is the architect, John Flynn from Woods Bagot, and he was entrusted in coming up with a building dedicated to the man himself. John, this at Howard Smith Hall.
It is, indeed.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's a new building and one of the few new buildings. There's two on the site. This building and the new buildings on site are really not to detract from the original wharf buildings, but really to sort of provide the facility and draw into the background. It has to be a modern statement. There's no good emulating the buildings that are already here. They are of a period, and we're not talking about restoration on this site. It's adaptive reuse.
And John, I mean, what a location. It's right there. You can't muck it up.
You can't.
Look, I think it's very much the central jewel in the Howard Smith crown. Congratulations, it's a beautiful building.
With some of the visual assets that this site's got, the bridge, the city backdrop, the cliffs, and obviously the river, all set amongst this heritage context, there was plenty to start with, and we as landscape architects and master planners, we're trying to, I guess, be a bit recessive and unpretentious about it. Let the site talk for itself.
And this beautiful dramatic backdrop.
Look, at night it's spectacular. The lighting on it is fantastic. We really wanted that to be the hero of the site and a perfect backdrop to the whole thing.
Look, ultimately, great design, great architecture. It's not about the buildings. I shouldn't say that, should I? But it is. It's about the people. It's about the people using those spaces and interacting. And there's all sorts of buildings and places to interact here.
Look, absolutely. The fact that there's events venues for 8 people up to 1,500 people and everything in between, it's really become a tourism draw card for the city.
I still can't get over the scale of this project. We started underneath the Story Bridge, 500 metres away. We've seen all sorts of beautiful restorations, new buildings. but I reckon I like the original one because there's an unfinished beer waiting for me.
It's been about an 8-year journey since originally having a vision of wanting to create an entertainment precinct for Brisbane. We've invested over $200 million into the precinct.
200?
Wow. There's been a lot of blood, sweat and tears and hard work, and money's gone into it. But we feel very proud of what's been delivered here.
Well, it's absolutely buzzing, but the most important question of all, how many beers you reckon you sell here a week? Because these blokes drink plenty.
We sell quite a lot and we drink quite a lot ourselves too. So, yeah, here's to FLYNN's Brewing Co. on the Brisbane River.
Cheers. Cheers. You know what, this really is an architectural ugly duckling story. It was once a place fit for wharfies and sailors, transformed into something now for the people of Brisbane. But these fairy tales are critical if we're to preserve the memories of our cities.
Coming up, a vertical school in Adelaide. Welcome back to Australia by Design Architecture. Which projects from this episode will the judges choose to go through to our final? Now, vertical education.
Well, this high school is very different to the high school I went to. This is a vertical footprint where we resemble, let's say, an office block. As an environmental footprint, this vertical solution is the way of the future.
I'm in the heart of Adelaide, about to visit the first public high school built here in over 100 years, and wow, have things changed.
Our brief was to create a new public high school in the city for 1,250 students. It's a STEM-focused school.
STEM is?
Which is science, technology, engineering and maths.
Right.
And to do it in a really remarkable setting.
One of the beautiful architectural elements that we're looking at here are these really striking gold blades.
That's our aluminium veil, which provides shading and glare control to the internal space. And the veil also creates opportunities to celebrate kind of key moments inside. We wanted to create a space that was really light and welcoming for everyone that came in through the front door. So a space with a lot of volume and, of course, an incredible light source. So the roof's an ETFE membrane roof, and it actually inflates to different levels to let the right amount of light in. So when it's a really hot day, it contracts to provide shading, and when it's winter, it opens up to let all the light through.
It's unusual to see a school on multiple levels like this. How did you tackle that from a functionality perspective for the students?
Well, so in terms of verticality, we kept with the public spaces at ground level.
Yes.
So the library, the cafe, the gallery and forum space. Then you go up to administration, performing arts, and then of course up to the top to the sanctuary of the learning spaces.
Where it's nice and quiet, makes sense to me. Wayne, you were the educational planner on this project, and it sounds really important. What does that actually mean?
What it means is that we're responsible for planning out the relationships of the spaces, so the kinds of learning spaces, both in a horizontal sense, so what kind of space was next to what other kind of space. And that's really to promote this idea of interdisciplinary learning and the STEM program that they're doing here at the school. But it's also about how we stack these functions, because obviously we're in a vertical school, we're not in a traditional horizontal school setting. We didn't want the building to feel like it had an inside and an outside, wanted it to feel like one whole thing. I guess one of the examples of that is where we're sitting now. This lovely little window seat is expressing out to the street what's going on in the school. So it's this notion of learning on display, which is really important. Another example of that is over in the art studio, just over here to my left, where we've got a little podium, which is one of these little pods that pokes out in the facade to the north and into the parklands, and you can see kids obviously doing some artwork there, which is fantastic. And then inside in the atrium, we've got these maker spaces, these little pods that talk to one another across the atrium and really show students one another what's happening inside the atrium.
The school is really the first that's been built in the Adelaide region for maybe 100 years, and you would expect it to be different as a result of that. And so a lot of the learnings that we've had from modern research and looking at industry and tertiary education is built into the architecture and design of the building. What we're trying to achieve is that our young people need to see schools as part of the real world, and it's not going to be part of the real world if it doesn't connect to it. When you look at a modern university or you look at a modern workplace with collaborative working and share spaces, this actually replicates it and gives our students a real experience of that world. And I think what it enables them to do is to move into that world well-skilled and well-versed in it.
The architecture and design of Botanic High School is shaping the future for education. The connectivity of the building allows for collaboration and learning, really preparing the students to move easily into the next stage of their lives.
Coming up, defensive architecture in the Blue Mountains. Welcome back to Australia by Design Architecture. Which project from this episode will our judges choose to take through to the final later in the series?
Our house is up in the Blue Mountains, so they had to be very, very careful of how they built this project. They've done a fantastic job on building this to suit the conditions it's in.
This project, which is situated in a challenging bushfire-prone environment, demonstrates how using steel can deliver a very impressive project that meets an architectural brief to the T.
The Black Summer bushfires devastated over 80% of these World Heritage listed Blue Mountains, threatening the lives and homes of those who live here. So I've come to see how good architecture can go a long way to protect against the risk of bushfire.
Here we are.
Oh wow, what a ride. Fabulous stuff.
Yeah, we really just wanted a bit of a retreat, something away from the civilization, and it's nice to come here and just have the serenity around us.
There must have been environmental challenges.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the Blue Mountains, so it's hot, it's cold, we've got bushfire threats. You know, we needed to consider making sure the house was really thermally efficient and making sure that it was able to survive a bushfire that came through. So we've got a radiant heat shield fence, we've got pumps, we've managed to minimise the vegetation around the house and keep the bush down. We worked with the architect to make sure that the house sort of suited us as well as the aesthetic that would fit into the bush.
Alex, this is such a great house. Tell us how it all began.
It all began when the clients had been sleeping here through many a cold winter in 2 existing pavilions, and they said, can you create a highly thermal efficient home that celebrates that view there, where on a clear day you can see the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Great use of timber, and those trusses are superb.
Yeah, the timber's a really exciting part of this project. We actually disassembled the old leaky building and have reused it within the house and exposed it. So these bits at the doors and the windows and the light fittings are actually reused, reclaimed timber from the existing house. It's a very extreme environment, so being able to use a non-combustible material helps you meet that fire compliance. I really love this Longline 305 profile because it's such a deep profile and it's so thin, so you get to really articulate that with the windows. And what was really cool we've done with this roof is actually integrated stiffeners within the roof profile that's allowed us to achieve this 2.4 metre span, which means you've got this real thinness to the roof.
I love the approach to detailing, that simplicity and consistency.
It's not simple, but it looks simple.
It never is it?
No.
Building in the bush, and especially up here in the Blue Mountains, key considerations for us is sustainability and also following the bushfire attack level codes. We believe we built this house beyond the codes. The unfortunate thing is with bushfire it's unpredictable. This house still could burn down, but we've got all the measures put in place. Being prepared is the key thing. Physically and mentally.
This rainwater tank's really important for the firefighting strategy, and it's also collecting all the rainwater from the roof so we can reuse it within the house.
Very sustainable project. Tell me more about how it began.
Well, sustainability is sometimes doing more with less. So the real sustainable thing here was that we had 2 existing pavilions and they were really leaky and not working well thermally. And there was a proposal to put a 3rd pavilion in. And then I came into the project and thought, why build this pavilion? Why not just join these and respect the landscape and make the whole thing a thermally comfortable home?
Unified by a single roof.
That collects all the rainwater and channels it to this rainwater tank that we're standing on right now.
Awesome. Cheers. With its simplicity of materials and thoughtful design, the L House demonstrates how fire-responsive design can result in a beautiful family home. And this one works so well with the environment around it.
SARAH Stephenson is one of Australia's leading colour experts, and together with Wattle, Sarah is choosing one project from the series to award the Wattle Best Use of Colour Award. The winner will receive Pantone's latest colour forecast kit. Sarah and Wattle use macro trends and consumer behaviour insights to create trends through bespoke photography and storytelling, and the winner will also receive a private preview of Wattle's 2021 colour forecast. The winner will be announced in the next episode.
I'm looking for a few different things, but it will be great to find a project that used colour in a unique and original way that really surprised and delighted.
Coming up, building with integrity in Surrey Hills. Welcome back to Australia by Design Architecture. It's nearly time to find out which of our projects from this episode will make it through to the final.
The Surrey building is another example from ANGELO CANDALEPAS of how to go about building apartments. CANDALEPAS' philosophy is that buildings that are durable and capable of lasting a long time are truly sustainable.
The facade is a bit brutalist, but it's got the grit and the quirkiness that really is Surrey Hills.
Angelo, how do you design a building to fit so differently into this kind of environment?
Well, the first thing I think we do is to try not to do something that stands out, actually. What we try and do is work with what's here and try and weave something into the environment out of the things that already exist.
So it's a real contextual study of what's going on around it.
And there are things that are worthwhile to consider and there are things that are not. And so the most important thing is to be a good judge. It's about looking at what people love and trying to offer it back to them. Jill, I hope you like what we've done because here it is.
I really like the raw concrete.
With concrete comes the vulnerability of it being too boring in a sense. And we want to make things that are not just concrete. They have form and they have shadow. So the materials we use are the material that you see, but then there's all the shadow and the light that hits it.
Well, I notice as you walk past the building that it actually shifts. It's got quite a lot of movement in the facade.
I thought it would be beautiful to have triangle screens. The triangles offer an illusion that you can see much more than you actually can. There's always a struggle as to what you offer. We try and offer as much as we can everywhere. And bike racks, a beautiful entry, composed areas that enable people to kind of think that, yep, we're coming home.
Angelo, it's really unusual to step into an environment like this, which is no applied finish. It's all concrete. It's really, raw.
Well, that has a lot to do with the client brief and how they brought an idea to us, which was to try and create something that had an integrity from the beginning to the end. Concrete is one theme, but there are other themes that have integrity in this development. One is landscape, or understanding of the relationship between urban life and landscape. There's nothing worse than walking through a hermetically sealed environment to get to your home. And there's something rather beautiful about seeing your home through a garden.
We
We wanted it to be very much a collaborative process and to see what Angelo would bring to it. Obviously, you know, Angelo is a very talented architect and we wanted to give him the opportunity to come up with something quite unique, which he has.
I really love the touch of the edible gardens that you've put on the roof here. This is a place that's obviously for the whole community of the building.
That was a really important aspect for us of the building. It was having a beautiful communal area and having a space, not only to get outside and get some sunshine, but as a space where people can kind of meet their neighbours and have that real sense of community in the building.
What we did was work closely together to create a collaboration that gives you what you saw today. The client was a supporter of us and we were a supporter of the client as well.
The developers here could have just done something ordinary, but instead they've chosen to back good design.
And now, which projects from this episode have the judges selected to go through to our final?
Howard Smith Wharf is an extreme project. This redevelopment will be used to its utmost by the people in Brisbane, and it is a fantastic repurposing of an industrial site.
Also in the final, Adelaide Botanic High School.
What I really liked was this idea of the atrium pods, where you've got this learning on display as part of the educational framework.
And the Surrey in Sydney.
It's one of the few apartment buildings that have been included, and apartment living has become such an important way of responding to our cities.
Well, that completes our top 10 finalists. Now, next time, our judges have to decide the overall architectural winner. That'll be the best of the best. See you then.